Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Garnet Schulhauser. Now Garnet was a corporate lawyer when his life changed dramatically in 2007. Now he was confronted on the street by a homeless man. Now normally he would just hurry past, but something told him to pay attention. The man, Albert, said he had come as a wise spirit guide in disguise to provide answers to humankind's questions. Now, over the next few years, Schulhauser had many conversations with Albert, who disclosed who we are, why we're here, and what happens to us after we die. Now, Garnet Schulhauser joins me to discuss his latest book, Dance of Eternal Rapture, Understanding Who We Are on the Human Journey. Garnet Schulhauser, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. This is my fourth time on your show.
Yeah, God, it could be. Yes, it could well be. Do you know what I'll do as well? I'll link all the previous interviews in the description in the video below. I'll make sure I
Okay.
do that. So, my gosh, right, you are always churning out a new book, which is a feat in its own right, as people that have ever brought a book out will know. It takes time, don't it, to get it published and everything else. And so this is your newest book, which in the description there, in the intro, I've just read off, which is Dance of Eternal Rapture, Understanding Who We Are on the Human Journey. So what's pushing you to keep doing these books, Garnet? What's going on here? Where is this information coming from?
It's coming from my spirit guide, Albert. And he's the one who I first met in 2007 when he was disguised as a homeless man. I met him on the street. And so that's launched an initial dialogue that I had with him and resulted in my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. Then he came back into my life, this time in astral form, and he took me on a series of astral trips to the spirit side, to other places in the universe, other places in our planet. And he asked me to write about what I saw and heard in my subsequent books. So I wrote book 2, book 3. Based on that, book 4 is also more about astral trips with my spirit guide, Albert.
So where is Albert as we speak physically right now? Where is he? Is he to the left of you, to the right? Is he in your head? Is he not
He's
there
not
at all?
he's not there as far as I can tell. He's a spirit on the spirit side. He's a soul. He's one of my spirit guides, and so I can't. I don't see him right now. I don't know where he is. I know he's watching. He's always watching what's going on, but he hasn't. He's not speaking to me directly at this time.
Can we bring him in? Can we bring him into this conversation?
No, he doesn't do that. I've asked him about that before on previous radio shows. He says, no, you're on your own. I'm not going to be speaking to you while you're talking to the host. It'd be kind of confusing. So he just stays away, and I can't bring him in.
Okay, well I'm someone who's currently doing a channeling documentary, and I've interviewed, I think it's 85, 86 channelers, yeah. The only channel that I couldn't get to come on was was Bashar, because Daryl Anka no longer channels Bashar in public. It's only through Bashar Communications now, which I what was a bit upset about. So let's get this right. So you can't call him in, you can't speak to him, you can't get any advice from him. He's just coming in when he wants to come in. But when he comes in, then is there missing time in your life? Can your wife account for all the time you're there? Is his contact happening in the dream time? Are you meditating and then he comes in? Where is the missing time when he's doing all this with you?
Well, it's when I'm sleeping. He comes in unannounced. He doesn't tell me in advance. He comes in unannounced to my bedroom, and he takes me from there. He pulls my astral body out of my physical body, and away we go. And I just follow him. And so I'm sleeping in my bed. My wife doesn't know I'm gone. I wake up the next morning. I'm in my bed. As far as she knows, I've never gone anywhere. So it's not really missing time. It's when my physical body is asleep is when we do these things.
Okay, but you can't call on him.
Oh yeah, I can call him if I want to speak to him by telepathy. Occasionally, if I have a question or something, I can call on him. He will answer, but that's just sort of a dialogue. That's not part of the astral travels. I can't get him to come and take me on an astral travel when I want to. It's always on his schedule, and I never know when that's going to happen.
But when you first met this man was a homeless man that you were so in awe with. Why were you so in awe with this homeless man when you saw him on the streets in 2007?
Well, because he had these amazing, dazzling, sparkling blue eyes like you've never seen before. I've never seen before, and his eyes were sending me. I felt like a gush of pure, unconditional love that was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security and well-being. It was an amazing feeling, something I've never encountered before, and it was sort of like if you had that feeling, you just want to stay there forever and bask in the
Yeah.
glow of this man's gaze. And so that's why he was just obviously very different.
Obviously, this now you think about it, you would have seen at the time or have been seen as talking to yourself on the street.
Yeah, I was the only one who could see him in physical form, and no one else could have seen him. So when we actually ended up sitting on a bench together and talking, it would have appeared like I was sitting on the bench by myself, talking to myself, because no one else could see him. I could actually see him and touch him. He was physically there for me. That was just the first three times of our meeting, and then after that, he no longer manifested in physical form. He was just a voice in my head, and we communicated by telepathy. So that was just his way of introducing me to him. Because when I said, "Why did you appear as the homeless man?" He said, "Well, had I just out of the blue suddenly started talking to you as a voice in your head, you likely would have thought you're losing your mind." And so this was his way of easing me into the conversation.
Don't you find that annoying though that you cannot just bring him in? If he's going to show you this information in your dream state, I mean, where's the fairness in that you can't, speak to him in this state? Why is it going to be the dream state that we're now communicating? That would annoy the hell out of me. That would.
Well, first of all, it's not dream state. Okay, I'm not dreaming when I'm off with him. I'm actually traveling in an astral form. It's not a dream. It's very different from a dream. When I wake up the next morning after an astral trip, all the events are very clear and crisp in my mind. They're very vivid. Okay, unlike dreams, which you probably had dreams too. When I have a dream, I forget all about it within 2 hours. Not so with these astral trips. So I'm not dreaming. I'm actually having an astral trip that they allow me to remember. And so, am I annoyed at this? No, because it's his agenda, and he doesn't come into these things. He doesn't allow me to do readings for people or to do public channelings. That's not his reason for contacting me. He said that he came into my life so I could write about what I saw and heard in my books, so that those revelations would be available to everyone. So he doesn't give personal advice. He doesn't allow me to do readings. I've asked him. He said no, that's not what his game is. And so, am I frustrated? No, I'm happy to go along with whatever he thinks his mission is.
Then how do we test the information? How useful is the information that he's given you?
Well, you can't test it. I mean, there's no way you can prove that I've spoken to my spirit guide or that I've been on astral travels. Not It's just not possible. Just like the people who have NDEs can't prove they've gone to heaven and back, or that the psychics can prove that they're really talking to people beyond the veil. You can't prove that in any scientific way. So people have to sort of listen to what I say. They can either say, that's true, or no, I don't believe it. Entirely up to them.
What do you think Albert would say about the current state of discernment in our community,
In which community?
in the community
Sorry.
that we're part of, this spiritual community? I mean, I mean, they're. I'm all for discernment nowadays. I really am, and I think there's many people in our community that purposefully mislead us. I mean, it's one thing to think that you're having these experiences, but I think there's people out there purposely misleading.
Oh, I think you're probably right. And as far as Alberta says, that's human nature. You're going to find charlatans in any sort of business or venture in human race on this planet. And so some people are going to do that, others won't. And it's up to the people who are listening to try to figure out, is that a charlatan or is that the real stuff?
But that's the hard thing, isn't it? It's like, okay, so whatever information we're bringing through, how useful is it for the individual in the present moment now? So let's look at some of the information coming through with Albert, and let's try to key into what you feel is information in this new book that's helpful to someone's evolution in the or not the I was going to say the evolution to where they're at right now, but anyone that's watching this will be at a stage where they're ready to hear this. But what was some of the information that you think is helpful for people that came through on this new book?
Well, there's a lot of things that are useful for people, and so I mean, I'll just go through a few of them. I mean, one of the things, and Albert carefully orchestrates all these trips so that there's something new for me to hear and to speak to people, so I can write about it because he thinks that's valuable. So, for example, on in my fourth book, I had a meeting on the spirit side with Muhammad, the soul who was Muhammad, centuries ago when he instigated Islam. So that was very interesting, and I think the reason for that meeting was for Albert to show that, contrary to what some other non-Muslim people think, Muhammad was not some sort of a monster who perpetrated a phony religion on a billion people on this planet. So I had the conversation with him. Very interesting guy. And the thing that really startled me was there was two things that he was really objecting to about the religion that he founded. And he said there's a lot of good things about Islam, but there's a couple of things that really bothered him, when he's looking down at what's happening on the planet now. And the first thing was, he said that he never in any way preached that women should be subjugated. Okay, so his view was that in some countries, as we all know, men subjugate and even abuse women. They make them cover their heads, their faces, their bodies. Some countries, girls can't go to school, or have a job. And he said that is totally contrary to what he preached. He always believed that women were equal in all respects to men, and that he's really dismayed that some men are using religion as an excuse to abuse and subjugate females on this planet. And he says that's just wrong, because that was never part of his teachings. The second part that he's really disturbed about is that how some men are using religion as an excuse to terrorize other people, other religions, other countries in the name of Allah. And he said that was never anything that he preached. And he always preached a peaceful coexistence with other people, other religions. And so he's upset that people are using his religion in that fashion, which is really contrary to what his teachings were. So that's sort of an eye-opener to me. And I think that Albert wanted people to know, particularly non-Muslim people, to know that what's gone wrong with Islam in many cases is just people after Muhammad who are interpreting his teachings in a way that's useful for their own agendas. And it's just and so it's not him that's causing all this problem. It's the men who followed him.
And what does someone do with that information when they hear that from you? What do we do with that?
I think you just have to look at Muslim people with a different viewpoint and understand that they're following their religion, and that some of the things that they believe are part of their religion, like some of the how they abuse women and subjugate women and incite violence, that's not part of the original religion that was set up by Muhammad. And so they have to realize that these people are just being brainwashed by subsequent men who have followed Muhammad. And I think that sort of throws a different light on it, and people can look at them a bit differently, as opposed to demonizing them and thinking that, well, all Muslims are abusive people, and they like to incite violence against other religions. That's just not true. So it's an attempt just to shine a spotlight on the originator of Islam, and in what he really believed in and what he really taught.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Let's just move on to one of the next things then that Albert shared with you. And when Albert was sharing this with you, was this to write this next book? Was it over a matter of just a couple of weeks? Was it months? Was it a year?
It was over several months. Yeah.
Right. Several months.
Yeah, and then it took me, and when I would finish each astral trip, I would wake up and I would go to my computer and pound out my notes about what I saw and heard. That formed the basis for the manuscript. And of course, then once I had all of my notes, then I had to turn it into a manuscript, have it edited, send it to the publisher, and so on. So
Okay.
it's the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so yes, so that's one of them, and one of the other. Let's just go through a few key ones as well. What's another key one for you for this book?
Well, yeah, one of the other key ones was he wanted to demonstrate to me that there are human civilizations on other planets that lived in peaceful harmony, that weren't like ours. There wasn't a lot of toxic, negative emotions running amok like we have on our planet Earth. He just wanted to show me that it doesn't have to be this way. You guys on Earth can pull yourselves out of this and learn to live with peace and love and harmony. So he took me to a planet many light years away, and there was a human civilization. They looked exactly like us. They were sort of, except that they're all extremely fit and robust and in great shape. And so these people lived in, there was no crime, there was no violence, there was no wars. People there didn't need to, they're very advanced. They didn't need to work. They had everything provided for them. And when I spoke with one of the citizens, and she said, well, years ago, or eons ago, they were not too much different than humans on Earth, where there was a lot of negative emotions and violence and crime and so on. And then the scientists discovered that most of the cause of negative emotions in humans was a defective gene. When they discovered that through genetic engineering, they managed to basically get rid of that gene. And so in their society, there was no negative emotions, which was great. And the fact that they were all in great shape was that they had learned long ago to eradicate most of the diseases that we have to endure, and they learned how to repair injured body tissue if there's an accident. So they all lived to be 200 or 300 years old, and they were slim and fit because their scientists had invented she referred to as sort of like a diet pill. You take this pill, you could then eat and drink as much of anything that you wanted to, not gain an ounce, not increase your cholesterol, not do anything adverse to your health. So these people were all just robust, but very happy because they had realized that eating and drinking fine food and drinking nice wine, it was really one of the pleasures that humans enjoyed. So they weren't going to cut that out. So rather than say, well, you're not going to have any of that, it's like, okay, you can have as much as you want. You take this pill, and there's no ill effects. So it was really, and so they had a lovely civilization. They actually had learned to travel between the stars, and they had visited our planet sort of secretly many times. And so they looked at us and said, okay, we were there once, we fixed our problem. You guys have to fix your problem. But there was a ray of hope. Albert was showing me that we on Earth, our humans on Earth, can in fact fix our problems if we just put our minds to it.
Well, you know, um, do you really feel it's as easy as that? Because we're all because there's, I mean, everyone's at just such a different awakening, aren't they?
Yeah, I think no, it seems pretty grim when you listen to the nightly news for sure. But Albert has told me many times that yeah, there is hope. We just have to sort of learn to pull together, one step at a time, one person at a time, embrace love and compassion and forgiveness, and get rid of your anger, fear, hate, greed, all the other negative emotions. Those are the emotions that cause so much problem in our world. And if we sort of one by one, you do it to get yourself in order, then talk to your friends and your neighbors and have it spread around. It'd be like dropping a stone into a pond. There's a ripple effect. And if we all work at that, we can in fact make our planet a better place.
Well, it's, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yes, and um, but do you think the soul contracts or the contracts we have with each other, really, really, want that to happen at this stage? I mean, isn't there something in the things that we go through sometimes, the really difficult learning lessons we have to go through? Isn't there value in that? I mean, does the soul really want to lose that value? Are we at? Do you know what I mean? Are we at that soul level to want that to happen? I mean, don't we have contracts and stuff that need to be played out? How can a contract be played out in a perfect world?
Depends on what's in the contract. What Albert says is that most of the bad stuff that happens on our planet is not because it was laid out in somebody's contract. Most of the time, it's because our negative emotions get out of control and we just spin off and go off on tangents that weren't really intended in our contracts. And so it really depends on what's in the contract, but there's nothing to stop our planet from becoming better, because if our planet becomes a really like a paradise on Earth in a sense, then souls will just find somewhere else to incarnate if they want to find a tough life. So that's not going to stop our planet from becoming a better place.
But it may be many hundreds, thousands of years before that which you got to visit there even becomes something in this reality. Could be.
It's hard to put a time amount on it, because it's time is basically kind of irrelevant anyways. It's we don't really have linear time is just an illusion. So to say whether something happens in 10 years or 100,000 years, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't know how long it'll take in terms of our linear time, but it can happen. Maybe it won't. Albert says there's a danger that we can just destroy ourselves and all other life on Earth if we unleash our weapons of mass destruction. That's a possibility that he hopes doesn't happen, and I certainly hope it doesn't happen. But it's not a done deal. We don't get a free pass out of jail. We have to work at it to get there.
No, I mean this reality is real. I mean this reality that we share together is a real shared reality. Forget all the other multiple universes out there. This is the one that we're in, and yeah, this is the one that it could go. Things could go bad, but so far we've done all right. So far, where we're at right now, we're in the best of times we've ever had, in one sense. This is a great time to be alive. It really is a fantastic time to be alive, and I always remind myself that more every day now than I did before.
Yeah, you're right. We are very technologically advanced, but our spiritual and emotional intelligence hasn't kept pace. And that's the real danger. We need to catch those other two parts up to where we are in a technological sense, and then we can really have utopia on Earth. And so that's our battle. And you can say this is one of the greatest times in our planet. Hard to say. I mean, there was Atlantis, there was Lemuria, who rose up to great heights, and they crashed and burned. It could happen to us as well.
It could do, but you know, what we have right now is still pretty good. I will say it. And God, did I come here to have peace on earth and kumbaya? If that was going to be the case, I'd be having it right now. I don't see any evidence of that. I see evidence of, this is the way it is. We can change it. We're in charge of our experience, and we can contribute to this reality, and contributing and helping make it better is important. But was it this experience we're having now, whether it's a life review we're having or we're just, whatever this is, it's real, right? Was it supposed to be this easy? I don't know. I mean, is these are age-old questions, aren't they? And just because Albert's able to show us another way doesn't. That's just Albert's reality. It may not be the exact one we're having, or it's Albert's potential. I always say this because when I've channeled as well, it's like it's all very nice and lovely and everything, right? But this is the truth that I'm in, shared with you and everyone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm just a bit
I,
more skeptical right now, or a bit more. I like to keep it grounded a bit more than I ever did do.
Yeah, one thing a lot of people I think that I've talked to would disagree with you, and you're saying this is a wonderful time. This is a great place to be. I mean, comparatively, I guess to the people in the Stone Age, it is, but we still have a lot of grief and a lot of challenges. In fact, the Earth School, according to Albert, is one of the toughest in the universe. That's why you're here. I mean, you chose to incarnate, so did I. And before we incarnated, we understand fully what was going on in planet Earth. So we came in here with our eyes wide open, knowing that there would be challenges, there would be hardships, there would be all the other bad things that's happening on our planet. And that's why we're here. It's a tough school. We're here to learn and progress and evolve. And most of the people aren't as optimistic as you in terms of how great planet Earth is right now. I mean, all you have to do is listen to the nightly news and find out about all the killings and the mass murderers and the terrorist acts and the wars and what's going on in Venezuela and Yemen and wherever, and you can get pretty depressed about it. So, I mean, good for you that you're optimistic, because I think that's the first step to improving things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't care about other people suffering in other countries, um, but I mean, well, yeah, I mean, when I say that, then I'm not really, thinking about all those other things going on when I say it's a great time to be alive right now. But uh, in my reality, it is. I mean, I'm actually, as my audience will know, I'm doing a murder documentary right now, which is I'm doing the first documentary to go against my own community, going against a fake secret space program whistleblower in my community, and I'll be going against more fake and people that are just purposely lying in our community. I will be, and I'm enjoying, and I'll be enjoying that type of work. Um, but I know what murder does. I've met murder victims just recently. I know what it does. I know what it does. Don't think I don't. I do. I do. I know, and I'm right now speaking to people in jail right now. You know, people that have committed murders, and I would say that there is definitely a dark energy working not only out there but within our own spiritual community, masquerading itself as light as well. That's the thing. That's the thing. Our community faces bigger than ever right now. But most people in our community don't want to talk about that. You know, I met a lot of channelers who say they're channeling the light. Bullshit. Bullshit. They're not. And that was hard to come to grips with. That was. Anyway, that's my take. That's a take from someone that's had a good grounded time in the community right now and seeing it completely different. So moving on, your next point in what Albert's got to offer us.
Well, it was another interesting trip, very interesting trip. And this one, you had mentioned earlier about all the different dimensions that exist, so I asked Albert, are there parallel universes? Does planet Earth exist in another dimension somewhere? And he says yes, and many. And so just to prove his point, he took me to Earth in a parallel universe. Okay, so it was the same linear time frame as we have here, so same time frame, and it was, planet Earth in every respect except a couple of major things that were different. And what he did was he took me to Lower Manhattan, New York City. There I noticed that the World Trade Towers were still standing, and I said to him, "Well, okay, this is the same time frame as our planet. How come they're still standing? In our planet, they were destroyed. They fell down." And he said, "Well, it was due to a quirk in the history of that planet. And planets, when they divide off and form parallel universes, initially they're identical, but then as time goes on, the interaction of energy and matter creates changes in those histories. So there are some parallel universes where Earth doesn't even exist because it wasn't formed, and there's some where it's very drastically different. There's some where Earth is still dominated by dinosaurs because the asteroid missed hitting the planet 65 million years ago. Anyway, this Earth that he took me to in this parallel universe was very similar to ours, but the World Trade Towers were still standing. And he explained why. He said because Muhammad died at an early age in a freak accident, fell off his horse. So he never formed Islam. And so on that Earth, there's no Islam as a religion. The Middle East was basically all Christian. So there was never any crusades. There was never any civil war in Syria, and there was never any Islamic terrorists. Therefore, the World Trade Towers were still standing. Okay, so it was very similar history. They had World War I, World War II, all the other stuff. They just didn't have Islam or Islamic terrorists. Okay, just because of a freak accident. Then he showed me another aspect that was quite different. He took me sort of up the island to basically to Harlem. And he dropped me down in the middle of Harlem, and he said, "Okay, do you notice anything different?" And I could see people were busy walking on the streets and cars driving by. And then it hit me. There weren't any black people. And this is the middle of Harlem. And so I said, "Well, what's going on? If this is the middle of Harlem, how come it's not full of black people?" And he said, again, due to another quirk in that planet's history, it was that Great Britain and the rest of Europe abolished slavery before America was colonized. So there was never any slave trade from Africa over to the Americas, never any slaves in America. There was never an emancipation proclamation because there weren't any slaves. There was no civil war in the US. There was no civil rights movement. And so the only black people in America were there from natural voluntary immigration. And so their population was like less than 1% of the total population, as opposed to like 13% on our planet. And so there was just a little quirk. Somebody, abolished slavery before it ever got going in America. So very interesting. It just shows you how things can play out differently just by a couple of minor seemingly minor points at the time sort of playing out.
It's very interesting. You change one thing, it changes so many things. But let's just go back to our community here for a minute, right? Because I'm telling you, I'm seeing problems in it, right? And I wonder what our community would be like if there wasn't the people out there who were wanting to kind of misuse their power. I wonder. I wonder what our community is going to have to pay the price for the misuse of power in our own community, because I just it's like anything. When you talk about the religious side, being so different. If Muhammad wasn't, had fallen off a horse at an early age, and that religion hadn't had taken off like it did, what are we doing to our own community with misinformation and sort of these almost like cult leaders that take the echelons of public figures in our community, and people just flock to them like the new religion, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
um, that's dangerous as well. I mean, because it does become very religiously. What this type of stuff, doesn't it? It can do.
Yeah, it can do. I mean, that's just a natural play out of humanity advancing. I mean, that's happened throughout the ages. I don't think this is anything new. There's always been snake oil salesmen in our society way back from day one, and there's going to be some in our current one. And you just have to, people have to sort of decide for themselves, does this ring true to me? Or is it a cult? Or are they just snowing me? What are they doing? Everyone has to figure out for themselves. You can't, no, nobody's going to jump down and say, okay, Kevin, this is who's telling the truth and this isn't. You're not going to get that sort of a direct
No, you're
communication. You're going to
not.
have to figure it out.
You're not.
Yeah.
I want people to come up with their own truth. I mean, can't people? Why have we got to? Can't people find their own Albert? Can't people have their own experiences? Why can't we listen to our own spirit guides and have the experiences that you're having? Why has it got to just be through you?
Well, other people do have similar experiences. Most don't, because as Albert said, if you could directly talk to your guide every day and say, okay, Albert or whatever your name is, what should I do today? What job should I take? Which house should I buy? What car should I buy? Where should I go on vacation? If you had your guide telling you step by step what to do, you wouldn't learn anything. There'd be no point. Like, why bother incarnating
No,
here
no,
if you got a roadmap?
absolutely no. But where's our Albert? Where's the people watching this? Where's their version of Albert in their sleep state?
Well, they're watching. Your spirit guides are always watching you 24/7. They're there for you. They are trying to communicate with you. They just aren't allowed to do a direct sort of conversation with you. And so that's part of the challenge of being a human. You have to figure out how to find and listen to their messages. And most of the time, they're very subtle messages. It's like flashes of intuition, whispers in your mind,
Sure.
coincidental events. You have to sort of watch for them and figure out what they're trying to tell you.
So
That's the
why
challenge.
have you got this and Joe Bloggs hasn't? What if someone's watching this, they're obviously watching this because they're interested in the subject that we're discussing here. But if that one person's watching it and thinking, well, I'm not going to, I just can't hear my version of Albert. Why have you got Albert in your life to get this information for yourself, which you are spreading with the audience? Otherwise, they wouldn't be watching this. But where
Of course.
where is theirs? How can they get in contact with their own Albert?
Well, there's no magic way, and I've been asked this question thousands of times by people. How come I can't speak to my spirit guide like you do? Albert says, look, it's not intended for everyone to have that direct communication. He has that communication with me because his mission was to have his revelation spread around the world. He needed a vehicle for that, a messenger. I'm just one of his many. And so he speaks directly to me so I can easily understand what he's saying. I don't have to guess at what he's saying, and I can write it about what he tells me in my books. That was his whole mission in terms of me, was to be able to speak to me and get me to write books about what I saw and what I heard and what he revealed to me. And so I'm just one of his messengers, and he chose that way with me. When I asked him why me, like why if you wanted someone to write books, why wouldn't you pick J.K. Rowling or Stephen King or somebody to write your books? And he says, no, there's good reason for that we chose you. And I'll explain it to you sometime, but you won't understand now. But we planned all this before you were born. When you're planning your life plan, you chose me to be one of your guides, and I told you that this is what was going to happen, but you don't remember any of that. So this meeting was not a chance meeting that I had with him. It was all pre-planned, and it just fortunately it played out the way we had planned it.
Isn't that a progression as well, where we stop looking up to people and we start getting our own internal answers? Isn't that what religion's taught us not to do? For those who are not in religion anymore, that we don't need one book to tell us what to think, what to say, what to do. That we should be doing this ourselves. I mean, isn't that what the message of all of us should be? Is that we don't need Albert, we don't need anyone, we just need ourselves. We need to tune in to what we think is what is our truth. But then again, it's not. But then again, then it gets to like, what's my truth, what's yours truth, and that gets a bit silly, because surely there has to be a universal truth. We live, me and you, Garnet, we live in a shared reality. But I suppose if someone was to tune in their higher self, right? Let's call it that. Then they could come up with some different understandings to you, or maybe they would come up with the same ideas because it's universal truth.
Well, there is a universal truth, and we'll all figure that out once we're on the spirit side. We're not in a human body any longer, and we'll figure out exactly what is the truth on planet Earth. But right now, it's hard for us to decipher that. And so, people can read. I mean, they can discover their own truth, but a lot of times they need something to prime the pump, a catalyst to get them thinking about things. And so, my books are one of those catalysts. I hope people read my book. Then I want them to think about it. They shouldn't just adopt it holus bolus without thinking about it. They should think about it and then decide, is Albert's truth the real truth, or is it Kevin Moore's truth the real truth, or is it the Pope's truth the real truth? They have to figure that out. But the main thing is to get them thinking about it and try to at least analyze the issues and then go from there and then do what feels right in their heart.
Well, at least your truth is grounded in a sense. I hear in this community that we're part of such negative, crazy, obscene, unhelpful, just crazy. Do you know, the more fear porn some of these big echelon speakers are in this community, right? The more it comes from fear and scariness, the more people love it and lap it up. The bigger the numbers of people viewing it, the more fear porn it is, the bigger the numbers. We're at that stage right now. Do you know that? We're so at that stage.
Yep.
So at that stage. Why do you think there's so many people used to tune into Alex Jones? Fear porn sells.
No,
And
exactly. No, I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
and it's the same. I mean, he was taken out, thank God, in one sense. But then again, I totally agree with taking out someone to say that they can't speak a truth. But he wasn't really serving. It wasn't really enlightening people. Do you know what I mean? In some way, not when you look at all the lies that he told. But yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's that fear stuff, and that's what religion was. I see religion as complete fear porn. Let's take away the good teachings of Christ, and let's just totally reverse it and make it, and control it. Where yours isn't like that, and yeah, not at all. But there was some stuff in your book where you talked about mermaids as well. That you, in one of your journeys, you got to see a mermaid, and I saw that part, and I was like, I didn't resonate with that. That wasn't my truth, and I thought to myself, maybe Albert's put that in there just so that people don't get addicted to what he's saying, because that to me wasn't this planet's reality. I don't, but I've never, that's never been discovered, and I would find that hard fetched to believe that. But that's just my personal opinion.
For sure. Well, I mean, and that's exactly what the purpose was, to describe what I saw, what that Albert showed me. I don't know what his purpose was. He doesn't tell me exactly what his true motives are. But anyway, he just showed me this mermaid, the real life mermaid, and I had a discussion with her, wrote about her in my book, which Albert wanted me to do. And people can decide, well, that's a bunch of BS, or they can say, hey, that makes some sense because that there's a lot of legends surrounding mermaids and a lot of stories, and usually where there's smoke, there's some fire somewhere. So people can decide for themselves whatever they want. His whole purpose was that there's more things that, as Shakespeare said, there are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in your philosophy. So there's a lot more things that are on this planet whether it be mermaids or fairies or Sasquatches, that than we are really aware of. And he just wanted to show that, okay, there are other things here that you humans have not yet discovered, and that one day that maybe you will. And that maybe the reason that you haven't discovered them is because they're afraid of humans, because they view us as being aggressive and violent, and they don't want to have anything to do with us until we change our ways.
True, true, true. And I just, I'm just a bit more like to stay grounded in this reality, even though channeling is way out there, and it's sort of, it's still kind of considered the fringe subject of spirituality. But I think there's a lot of great stuff in there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing a documentary on it. But well, mind you, one thing it has been is complete good tool for discernment. But yeah, who knows why Albert put that in there? Maybe what he had to say with the mermaid was very helpful with the information that she was talking about. But it's it will put people off, won't it? When that's that being in there. So there
It
must be a
will.
reason why that's done.
Yeah, and you can just take a guess as well as I can as to why it was there. I know it will put off some people. I've had other people say, "Yeah, I don't believe that stuff about the mermaid or the fairy or the Sasquatch, but I believed everything else." I mean, people can they're free to pick and choose what they want to believe in my books and reject whatever they don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, like I
I,
said, it's that whole discernment thing, isn't it? It's like when I say that when people get a reading with a psychic, sometimes, they'll the whatever's coming through that medium will bring some beautiful stuff in, and then just basically piss all over it with some misinformation, maybe done on purpose so that you don't live and die by that reading. Sometimes things are injected so that you do not become addicted to what's coming through. It's done on purpose, is my point. You
I
just
I
reported
don't
what you
know.
saw, right?
Yeah.
But there's sometimes, well, I don't know neither, but, you know, is there I'm just putting that out there.
It's entirely possible. I can't really comment on what psychics or mediums do, whether they do these things deliberately or
No,
whether the
not the
spirits.
psychic. I'm talking the spirit doing it deliberately,
Oh, oh, oh,
misinformation deliberately.
oh, the spirit doing it. Yeah, and that's possible. I don't know. I have no information on that. I don't think that Albert is deliberately feeding me misinformation. I believe that whatever he's showing me is true, but maybe he's just fooling me too. I don't know.
You just look at religion, and you just look at the how many centuries that soul was probably reincarnated into the same religion, or maybe different religions, and maybe that some of these souls had to be ripped out of religion by councils or whatever you want to call them to say, look, you don't need that addiction anymore, because we can, it all seems like this is very much free will. And
Hmm.
I suppose the last thing we want is feeding people stuff that they're going to get addicted to. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, moving on. I believe one of the, now quote me if I'm wrong here, or tell me if I'm wrong, I should say, that did he show you something to do with the sort of life review process in this latest book, where you know where sometimes in life reviews you can actually get to re-experience the same life you had before as well.
Yeah, I don't think I talked much about it in my latest book, but I've had other experiences, conversations with him, and essentially you're right. When you make your transition to the spirit side, when your physical body dies, one of the things you do is have a life review where you go back over all the things you've had and said and done, or had things done to you in your last life. And it's a very sort of a detailed thing. You can manipulate it. You can go chronological order. You can go fast forward, slow motion, go back and review things that you wanted to see again. And it's like watching a 3D movie essentially. And one of the amazing things is that when you're watching what's going on, when you interacted, say, with a coworker, you not only get to sort of watch what happens and hear what you said, you get to hear their thoughts and feel their emotions as you interact with them. And so, for example, if you said something mean to a coworker or to your spouse or your child one day, when you're doing your life review, you actually get to feel their emotions when you and how they reacted to what you said. So you get to feel their fear, their rejection, and everything else. That's a learning tool, because then when you're planning your next life, you think, okay, well, now I know I have to be very careful when I speak to people or do things to them, and try to understand how they might react. Even though you don't intend to intentionally harm them, you may do so just by inadvertence. And so it's really a learning tour. And it's not just the bad things, it's the good things. When you shovel the driveway off of your elderly neighbor after a snowstorm, you get to feel her great love and thankfulness and gratitude for what you're doing. And you may not have been aware of that when you're living on earth. And so the life review is a very important thing. It's not designed to make you feel badly about what you did, because we all make a lot of mistakes. We all do a lot of dumb things. We all hurt other people. It's just a tool for learning, so that we can, when we're planning our next life, we can say, okay, these are the points I have to work on. So I'm going to choose my life where I can get a chance to do better than I did in this last life.
But how would we know this is not a life review and we're just not reliving a life that we've already lived before, in a sense? And in some way we're on a sort of collective life review from the people that we interact with. How would we know that this is the original life?
Well, because just because the way Albert explained the cycle of reincarnation, and I believe that what he tells me is true, is that we, first of all, we choose our lives that we're going to incarnate into, prepare life plans, and then we jump in, forgetting everything that we had planned for ourselves, and then try to make our way through life to try to stay on the path that we had chosen. And then when our physical bodies die, we go back to the spirit side. That's the cycle that he told me happens. And so this life on earth is as real as it can be for us. For the people on the spirit side, it's not really very real. It's sort of like a play. It's like they're watching you in a play.
Yeah.
And so that's why at the end of the day, if somebody murders you, when you die and cross over to the spirit side, and your perpetrator is there as well, you don't hate this person. You don't want revenge. You don't, it's all sort of forgiven. It's all nothing but unconditional love, and because they regard it as like a play. So if you're in a play on earth and the script calls for you to stab and kill another actor, when the curtain goes down, the two of you don't get into a fight, and you don't get arrested for murder, because it didn't really happen. And so that's how they view it on the spirit side. So the life on earth is very real to us. It's an illusion, if you will, that's very incessant. It dominates our lives. We can't imagine anything else, because that's what is intended. But when we get back to the spirit side, we'll say, okay, well, I'm having a conversation with Kevin's soul, and it's like, okay, Kevin, you took a wrong turn here, and I took a wrong turn there, but and we may have knocked heads, but that's all in the past. That's all just what happened on earth.
What if the person that murdered you is still down here, and you may not be so settled at where you've crossed over to, and you may not be a soul that's moving on until maybe you feel that your justice on planet Earth has been served in some way. I think some souls can go through traumatic murders, and I don't think it's as clear as that. I think it's I think that yes, in its primal way that you were saying that, yes, I agree with you, but I think there's also so much more to it than that, when souls have been taken early, and those that did it are still here, and I'm sure that soul is wanting things to be put right while those people are still incarnate. Maybe you never know.
You're looking at things from a human perspective, Kevin. Albert tells me it is so much different when you get back to the spirit side. Like things, everything that you imagined or reacted to as a human on earth is totally off the table. It's not there anymore. Nothing but unconditional love. So I disagree. If somebody kills you and you're on the spirit side, your murderer is still on earth, you have no desire to try to fiddle with their lives or take revenge or fix things or arrive at justice. That's just a concept that doesn't exist on the spirit side. Albert was very clear on that.
That may be Albert's truth, but maybe at levels above Albert that may be different. Maybe levels below Albert that may be different. The level that Albert's at, that's true, but there are probably other levels to where Albert's at, and souls are maybe at different levels. So yeah, I've always said that just because the same truth comes through a lot of people and all the books are saying the same thing does not mean it's that black and white. I think we are hearing the information that we are ready to hear. I think it's so much more than we can possibly even comprehend.
I totally agree. There's so much we don't understand, and we won't until we get back to the spirit side. And so Albert says, in the meantime, you have to sort of stumble around on this planet with blinders on, because that was intended, and you have to try to find your way without a lot of, direct guidance. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do. You can make as many mistakes as you want, take as many wrong turns as you may. You can even be a horrible person. You can be a murderer, those people go back to the spirit side the same as you and I do. There's no other place to go. There's no hell. There's no
No,
purgatory.
absolutely.
It just we all go back. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there might be a rest. And I all I can say is yes, that there's just so much more to this. And I came to realize that in my journey of interviewing so many people that, you know, none of these books have got the truth. It's level 101. It's not even that. It's as you know, you probably said in this interview, it's kindergarten stuff. But that's okay because as all my journey as well, I've realized, you know what really matters is here right now. We can get so lost about where we're going to go to, what we do on the other side, what we on all blah de blah de blah de blah de blah, right? And it's like it just takes you away from the present moment here. Sometimes I think if we can bring useful information from the other side into this present moment now to make it more loving, more enjoyable, more fulfilled, a bit more like a kind of life coach information. I think that's for me where the power is in all this.
And I think that's all, speaking for myself. That's all I can try to do is lay out for the people in my books what Albert has shown me, what he's told me, and hopefully that will spur on some enlightenment in them, get them thinking at least, and hopefully from there we can make some progress. That's all that I can do. I don't purport to try to convert people to Albert's way of thinking. I lay it out for them, and they can make up their own minds.
Well, I don't think you'd want to convert them to Albert's way of thinking. I think this has been a truth that's worked for you. It's helped you progress, and I think what you're doing is just sharing this information. And if it's helpful to others, that's great. If it's not, well, okay, that's not they're not ready for that right now. But I mean, there's nothing that you put out there that's I mean, it'd be nice if your type of information was reaching a larger audience. But it's where it is, and that's beautiful. If you put a bit more fear porn in there, Albert, or Garnet and Albert, I can assure you your ratings will go up, but that would be the wrong thing to do.
I totally agree.
You can get on all the conferences. You could actually, if you can make up a good story, you'll be able to get on all the conferences. All the other crazy talk shows will take you, and you'll just become mega famous in this community. And yeah, but that's not what you're about, like you say. This is about genuine, helpful information, and that's what that's important to promote that stuff. Maybe that's why I've stayed with doing what I've done for a while, but things are changing now. In all this information that Albert's brought through in this new book, and there is a lot which we just know where we're going to cover in this interview right now. What would you say are some of the most important bits of information that you can just leave us with as well, just as a sort of summary?
Well, I think it goes back to one of the points you mentioned earlier about how religions have, for some people, have become addictive, and they've caused a lot of problems over the ages. Interesting, I had a conversation with Jesus Christ. I had a couple of them, but the latest one that's in my fourth book is that he said, Christianity has done a lot of good, and many good works over the years, but he was really upset at the way that his teachings had become basically hijacked by religious holy men who had followed him, and they had decided that for their own agenda that they wanted power and control, and their means to devise that was through guilt and fear, particularly fear. And he was really upset at all the people, he said, over the ages where these holy men invented this concept of hell. And if you were a bad person, you died before you made amends, you'd go to this awful place and burn in fires forever. And he said that's total nonsense. And he said these people have caused so much grief, anxiety, sleepless nights by people over the ages who are afraid that either they would end up going to hell, or their children or their spouse or their family would end up going to hell. And he said that was just the wrong way to approach it. His teachings were about love and compassion and forgiveness, not about filling people with fear in order to get them to go to church every Sunday. So that was something that always stuck in my mind. And I know that there's a lot of people. I mean, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. I have three sisters who still practice it. But there's just some of their teachings are just so way off base, and so disingenuous in terms of helping people that people just have to realize that you can't believe everything the Pope or the Cardinals or the Church tells you, because a lot of things are just way off base.
Absolutely. Your website, Garnet, is
GarnetSchulhauser.com. not easy to remember, but if you Google any of my book titles like Dancing on a Stamp or Dance of Eternal Rapture, you can get to my website and you can find all kinds of information there, including my email address. If anyone wants to send me a question or make a comment, I'd be happy to hear from them.
Excellent. Well, I'll be linking up all your books in the description below. Your website's been coming up on the screen throughout this interview. Your book is available, your latest one, from all good bookstores. And we'll put the link to Amazon below as well. So, well, it's been fun. And, and until next time, Garnet, just thank you so much for putting up with me and for gaining some more spiritual insights to the audience for your work as well. So Garnet Schulhauser, thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me, Kevin.